here in the room, the hundreds here in the room, the hundreds at different other universities, and many more online. This event is organized by the Ukrainian Society of our Student Union in partnership with their counterparts at other universities. And I briefly want to mention them just to show how many of them are here. University of Birmingham, University of Cambridge, City University here in London, Coventry University, University of Glasgow, University of Manchester, University of Oxford, and University College London, together with us, of course, here at the London School of Economics and Political Science. My name is Eric Neumeier, and I'm one of the school's pro-directors. We want to leave maximum time to spend with our main speaker, His Excellency Ukrainian President Zelensky. Welcome, very strong welcome, whom we are very honored to host via video link. And so I will hand over straight to my colleague, Chaloka Beyani from the LSE Law School, who will chair the event and moderate the discussion. Chaloka, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric, for your kind words of welcome and introduction. It is now my singular honor to be able to invite His Excellency President Volodymyr Zelensky to give his address. Mr. President, please.
Thank you very much. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, esteemed students, faculty, professors, academics, scientists, we have the record the boat race on Thames between Cambridge and Oxford. The first regatta took place on this very day, on the 10th of June, almost 200 years ago. Yes, this is just a symbolic fact, and I'll be frank with you, it doesn't change much from my address. I can compare this with Ukraine, with us swimming against the current, and our country is trying to fight the Russian warships still afloat, and we would like to feel like we're not alone, that all the countries of the free world are in the same boat, and Ukraine does not have to, on the 107th day of war, to issue SOS signals for everyone. I can tell you more, but I do not want this address to last for 16 minutes, 19 seconds, like the old record 200 years ago. In preparation for this meeting, I read about history and traditions of your respective educational institutions, for us to speak the same language, for us to discuss present day of Ukraine clearly and well for everyone. For 107 days, we have been fighting the aggression of the Russian Federation. Our ability to hold the line comes as a wonder, as Oxford electric bell. Nobody still can tell exactly how it works and how it is designed. The same with Ukraine. 107 days in a row, we have generating this energy to oppose the second army in the world, protecting ourselves, defending Europe. And if Ukraine has flat batteries, that will be a real energy crisis for the planet. 107 days, we have been tested for survival and resilience. Every day we pass the Cambridge test and the tripods, but we have to listen to wailing of sirens for 107 days. We have been opposing the barbarians, people who are not inhuman, the army of the person who should not be mentioned, according to some politicians. And of course, the same goes for his gas and oil. For 107 days, we have opposed the enemy who never read Bernard Shaw, one of the founders of London School of Economics. We can fly like birds, swim like fish. But the only thing missing is to learn to live on this planet as humans. And the enemy who wouldn't recognize the truth that Birmingham University rector fought for Robert Cecil, the Nobel Prize winner, on the necessity for humanity to solve the problems not in the trenches but at the tables with arguments, not missiles and rockets. 107 days we have opposed the state which has a new form of color blindness. They whole black, white and white, black. They talk about peaceful goals, but their goals are peaceful cities and villages. They're killing children and women, calling that self-defense. 80 years ago, Manchester survived the Christmas bombing. And this year, all Ukraine had Easter bombing. And 80 years ago, Nazi invaders would ruin Coventry. This year, the Russians created in the territory of Ukraine tens of Coventries, Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka, Kharkiv, Mariupol. 107 days we have been fighting a nuclear state. That can be called, can be given a Darwin's Prize for not knowing the international law and violating it. I've got ready for this conversation. You can see that. Can we be humorous? Can we be ironic? Of course we can. There's no other way. I can give you more analogies, quote hundreds of alumni of your respective universities, but let's be frank. What do you know about Ukraine? Recently, students of Edinburgh University actually exposed their professor. He was repeating the Russian narratives, lecturing students. And this news, like hundreds of other signals issued by you, testified to at least three things. The war in Ukraine is not something you do not care about. This war is visible and monstrous. The truth is known, it's important, and you know the truth about Ukraine and its war. You know about Ukraine because of the war. You are reading about bombardments of Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Odessa, but do you know that those cities have sister cities, Leeds, Birmingham, Liverpool? Have you heard about the Kiev letter? This is a document, and this is which is 1,000 years ago, and it's in Cambridge Library right now, about Queen Margaret, the first saint of Scotland, granddaughter of Yaroslav the Wise, the Prince of Kiev. Have you heard about John Hughes, who founded Donetsk, or founder of Luhansk, the Scotchman who built the first coal mine in Ukraine? We have lots of joint histories. I'm not trying to expose anybody's lack of knowledge, but this describes the essence of war that is fought by Russia against us. The mission is to delete our history, our state, our identity, and to deny our existence. And as such, and to tell the world that we never existed, that we are an artificially created people, like a variety of some kind of plants or animals, and that downgrades our culture, our language, and that denies our arts, our philosophers, our academics, our scientists, our designers, our inventors, our writers, our great rulers, and great warriors of Kievan Rus, of the Cossack state of Zaporizhia, and the new generations still to come, to delete all memories of Ukraine as a country without any past, any present, and hence no right to the future. Why would they do that? Well, because they have this vision, this phobia of freedom at the state level. And they do not know what freedom is. That's why they're scared and apprehensive. If freedom in some neighboring country next to them, this is dangerous for Russia. This is too close, and they want to destroy it, but they will lose. We are fighting for our future. They are fighting for somebody else's past. But the time for such countries and such rulers is gone. Our time, it belongs to us, and our future belongs to us. And this is our active voice, a real voice. And let's speak with that voice today. And I do not want my speech to last for 16 minutes, 19 seconds. So let us start an exchange. And I will promise to be very open. Glory be to Ukraine.
The applause speaks for itself. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your captivating and sobering address. Students in each one of the participating universities will now have an opportunity to ask the President strictly one question. We'll start with a question from the Ukrainian Society of the LSE Students' Union, Danilo Nikiforov. Danilo?
Thank you, Чолока. Дуже дякую, пане президент, що знайшли час до нас
Thank you
звернутися.
very much for finding time to
Далі
address
продовжую
us.
англійською.
And let me
The UK
continue
has
my
proven to be
English.
a reliable ally for Ukraine in countering Russian aggression. Beyond memorandums of cooperation, how exactly will the envisioned Trilateral Security Pact between Kyiv, London, and Warsaw contribute to European security? Thank you.
Mr. President, please.
Thank you very much for this question. I heard some part of it, but I heard the key thing, the triangle, Kyiv, London, and Warsaw, and what kind of security, international security can it provide for the future of our region. And before I discuss the future, let's have a look at our present day with a full-scale war situation. Some alliances, some security dialogues and actions are spontaneous. They depend on the society and the leaders of the societies in specific countries. And this triangle is also self-propelled, self-induced. And in addition to history, we have that present situation from the very first day of the war. We had chemistry among the leaders of the three countries you mentioned. From the very first day, we arranged our relations based on support, powerful support from Prime Minister Johnson and people who were demonstrated in the central streets of London, and President Andrzej Duda and people in the capital, among the leaders of the three, Wrocław and other cities and towns. Those people supported us, and leaders of those states. From the very first day, we maintained our communication every day, discussing support of Ukraine, not with words, but with deeds. Military equipment, the weapons, and Poland provided that, and the principal promoter, in addition to the US, was official London. This is true, and the United Kingdom wasn't the engine, the driver of that process, and we created that trust. Our armed forces have trust in the British forces. Our leaders, our warlords talk to each other. We help each other. And presently, every day, actually, I have some kind of communication with different important leaders of the United Kingdom. Ben Wallace today, a couple of days ago, I talked to Prime Minister Johnson, and today here we have Minister of Defense of the UK, and there are many meetings at the ministerial level, and the assistance is coming. It's coming indeed. And today we have this platform for relations. This speaks for not just some foreign affairs, so they're helping us. And when we win, and we shall win, we'll share this victory with our friends who supported us all the way, building up the future security of the world. And that triangle, we're discussing the detail of the future security safeguards for Ukraine and for the region by the same token. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your eloquent answer. May I now invite in alphabetical order questions from universities that are participating in this event. First of all, University of Birmingham, moderator, Professor Alexandra Kavosky, Director of Global Engagement. Professor Kavosky, please.
Good afternoon from University of Birmingham. I hope that you can hear me. And if I can just welcome everyone. And if, Mr. President, I can thank you for taking time to talk to us, to our students and staff. As you can see, there's a lot of us here. And also if I can thank the university partners and also the Ukrainian Society for organizing this event. Before I pass the floor to our student, Mihailo Pimkin, who is going to ask you a question, I just want to assure you that University of Birmingham is fully supporting students and staff. We have created a fund which is providing students with different schemes and helping them to continue their studies. And also we are welcoming some new students who are coming to join us from September. We're equally going to host some of the academics coming from Ukraine, and that will happen in September. And I will stop here because you want to hear from our students, and I'm going to invite Mihailo, who is going to ask the question. And thank you very much once again on behalf of University of Birmingham. And if I can also invite His Excellency to come to University of Birmingham when that is possible. Thank you very much.
Добрий вечір, пане президенте. Дуже дякую, що ви знайшли час.
Hello, Mr. President. Thank you for finding the
You recently
time.
talked about considering removing all old houses, all Soviet houses, especially in devastated areas. It is just an idea, or are there any development plans for reconstructing our country? Thank you.
Дуже дякую за
Thank you.
запитання.
Thank you for the question. You know, this is the philosophy of a big project that covers the renovation and rebuilding of our country. It covers a lot of issues, physical and non-physical. The renovation and rebuilding of the post-Soviet buildings, it's not about only a quality of life. It's not only about these destruction and the damage caused by the aerial bombardment of Russian aircrafts, and you would need to rebuild that because people would need to somewhere to live. It's all about rebuilding our country. It's all about restarting Ukraine. I want the people to return to their native streets and native cities, but that would be a different Ukraine, a Ukraine that has defended its independence, its future, and I want this future to be mentally different, not in the Stalin's age buildings, but in the independent Ukrainian environment. So that's what about this process, and that will be a large reconstruction, rebuilding process, a renovation of our country. Of course, I would like to say that we would be able to reconstruct all the buildings, but that would depend not only on our wishes, but on the financial support. But nonetheless, when we will start this large program, I believe that would be the movement that will become unstoppable until we finally rebuild everything.
Again, thank you very much, Mr. President, for your insightful answer. We usually speak of the peace humanitarian development nexus, and you've laid it out for us. May I now invite the University of Cambridge moderator, President of the Cambridge Union, and advisedly he used the word president with a small p here.
Hello, Mr. President, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I'm Letty, a student of architecture and president of the Cambridge Union, where we are sat today and joined by a packed audience in your honor. The Union is the oldest debating and free speech society in the world and is proud of our long and extensive tradition of hosting prominent figures from all areas of public life, including the Dalai Lama, President Ronald Reagan, Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking, and without a doubt, your name, Mr. President, will be etched into our proud history. I'll pass you on now to Oksana, President of the Cambridge University Ukrainian Society, who will be asking our question.
Доброго вечора, пане президенте. I'm Oksana Hetman. I'm a student here at Cambridge University, and I have a question from our Ukrainian academic community, especially from people in international institutions. We believe that the future of our country is directly dependent on science, research, and education. And for us here, it is essential to ensure the highest level of professionalism and academic integrity. With this in mind, we are very curious if there are any personnel changes planned in the Ministry of Education due to the recently discovered issues with academic integrity of the minister himself. Are you planning any such changes in the near future?
Mr. President, please, you have the floor again, repeatedly.
Thank you for this question. You know, in addition to the leading professions that are highly in demand with the Ukraine and in the whole world, I believe that you forgot to mention another quality, which is very important, and it's highly in demand in Ukraine and in other words. And that quality is a leadership skills, and that's very important. If I remember, if I understood correctly, the last name, your last name is Hetman, so that's a surname of a true leader, and you truly understand that whenever someone is appointed to a senior position, that person has to be a leader, has to be focused on the fulfillment of the major goals. And we've started with the rebuilding of our country, and of course we'll be rebuilding and resetting the education. There will be a lot of demand from the state on the students with the modern professions, in addition to a traditional one, because you clearly understand that under conditions of a dangerous neighborhood, the technology and the security are of an utmost importance. And of course, we will not tolerate any issues of corruption, because this is also related to the security of our state, with the correct use of funding, with the correct use of the talented pool of resources. We need to have businesses coming to us and not from us. So of course, our task is to consolidate and make our leadership stronger, to consolidate every ministry, and those who will manage to stay, they will stay, and those who would not be modern enough, those who would not be ready to develop at a pace that the state has to take, then they will be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Leadership in crisis and recovery is the theme of your question. I now give the floor to City University of London, moderator, President of City University of London, Sir Anthony Finkelstein, who was Chief Scientific Advisor for National Security to Her Majesty's government from 2015 to 2021.
Thank you very much. As its president, on behalf of City University of London, our students and staff, thank you, President Zelensky, for the service you and Ukrainian people are giving for democracy and European security. I'll pass the floor to our student, Marina Pavlyuk.
Hello, my name is Marina Pavlyuk. I'm from Rivne. I study aeronautical engineering at City University, and I have the following question for you. Will there be any initiatives to attract STEM specialists from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics from abroad? If so, what steps do you see in implementing these programs, and what will be their uniqueness from existing foreign ones? Thank you.
Marina, дуже дякую вам за запитання.
Marina, thank you for the question. You know, we don't have the time, and today we are at war, and when we will be victorious, we will need to act swift. And I would like to underline, we need to have energy, we need to have modern technologies. And even before the start of the war, I offered an initiative to construct a large university with the support of the president. And this university would be focusing on engineering, on bio, nanotechnologies and modern professions, something that our country truly needs. And unfortunately, the priorities has shifted after a large-scale aggression of Russia into Ukraine. Of course, now we are all fighting, but I would like to underline that these initiatives, there will be a lot of them in our country, because I would like to underline, we don't have a lot of time. We need to act swiftly. We need to support creative ideas, startups, many things. And our Ministry for Digital Transformation will be presenting a lot of them. And they'll be telling on how we are developing our DIA app, what sort of services would be provided through digital means. And we are in the right direction. Even now during the war, we continue to develop this. Those initiatives with results to state support and financial support to a range of startups. Now, all of those initiatives will be there, and that will play a significant role in the development of our state.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With your optimism of victory, anchored on energy, vision, creativity, and digital transformation, I now give the floor to the University of Coventry moderator, Pro Vice Chancellor, Paul Noon, Enterprise and Innovation. Quite appropriate.
Hello, Mr. President. It's my honor to welcome you to Coventry University. As you know, this city has faced the darkest of times itself and has welcomed refugees from across the globe. And our people, our communities stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine. Behind me, you will see a book that has been a single edition book that has been produced by some Coventry University students who are raffling this book off for charity, and currently it is standing at £130,000, and all of that money will go to the Ukraine fight. I will now introduce my colleague, my student colleague, Pavel Pimkin, who will ask you the question. Thank you very much, Pavel.
Пане президент, доброго вечора. Дякую, що знайшли час для розмови з нами. And now I'm switching into English. Ukrainian students have been very active since the beginning of the war. They are joining the military forces, territorial defense, volunteering in different parts of Ukraine, even abroad. And I'm sure that after the end of the war, this activity only increase. So does the government plan to attract students during the reconstruction period, or even create accelerator programs that will create good conditions for young businessmen and startups in Ukraine? Thank you, Mr. President.
So thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to express words of gratitude for this book of assistance and support. That's a true reflection of solidarity. I would like to underline my personal feelings. It's not even the question about the money. The question is about the support and the openness. Now, going back to your question, there were several, in fact, questions. So let me try to answer them quickly. So speaking about the support to young specialists and startups, well, I've already started answering those questions in the beginning. So there will be a lot of programs like that and special directions where the state is ready to support, and there will be certain amount of money that we are ready to allocate in support of young specialists who are creative or enthusiastic. So that's a separate program. But there is also a big program for you to understand that there will be a large demand for different professions for the youth. And you also need to understand the scale of the program to cover the rebuilding of Ukraine. What's the essence of this program? Well, first of all, the state today, and we are offering every state in the world to take patronage over a city, region, or an industry. So a certain country of the world will take a patronage over certain regions and cities. So they will be communicating experts to experts, students to students, and we'll start rebuilding our country so that every country would be proud that they worked together with Ukrainians on building Ukraine. Now that's the bigger essence, and so far a lot of countries are supporting my proposals, and they believe that there is a sense in doing so because Ukraine is defending the freedom, the human rights, the democracy for the whole Europe and the world. And now, in return, and I think that's very just, that the whole world would be supporting and rebuilding Ukraine. So there will be a lot of work for everyone, and there will be a lot of places for those who would be willing to take them.
Thank you very much, again, Your Excellency, with a strong message of support, solidarity in the ideals that Ukraine is fighting for on behalf of those who clearly are committed to liberal democracy, as well as territorial integrity. May I now invite the University of Glasgow moderator, Professor Peter Scabara, Ramsey Chair of Chemistry, School of Chemistry at the university.
Greetings from Glasgow. It's a huge honor for me to address the President of Ukraine and also to represent the Society of Ukrainians at the University of Glasgow. Glasgow is extremely committed to give long-term support to Ukraine. We've twinned with the universities of Kyiv Mohyla Academy, Poltava State Medical University, and the Lviv National Medical University as well. In October, we'll be enrolling 120 or more than 120 displaced Ukrainian students for free. We will cover their fees, and we'll also cover their subsistence and accommodation as well. As a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, I highlight their efforts as well, which are substantial in raising awareness of the current crisis in Ukraine by interviewing and publishing the impact of the war on industrialists and chemists. And I'd also finally like to add a message to the President and all Ukrainians on behalf of the local people in Scotland who have been incredibly generous in the many ways that they've supported Ukrainians. Від усіх нас Шотландії ми посилаємо нашу щиру любов і силу. Нехай наша гарна Україна, вся Україна навіки залишається вільною.
Glory be to Ukraine.
I'll now pass on to our student Nivyena Kharlanova, who is an undergraduate student at Kyiv Mohyla Academy and the University of Glasgow.
Добрий день, добрий вечір, пане президенте. Дякуємо вам за ваш час і дуже
Mr.
пишаємось.
President, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and I'm moving to our question. We came up with an urgent question. So we're wondering what is the approach of the Ukrainian government concerning Ukrainian universities and students now located in the temporarily occupied areas? What will happen to the teaching staff and students as well? And how the UK academic society and all the communities can help to overcome this educational crisis? Дякуємо.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you very much for this question. I would like to thank Glasgow for receiving our students, first of all. And thank you, Ukrainian students, for the demonstration of good educational level of knowledge, and you are representing our state. You are our ambassadors of our academy here. And now speaking of the tragedy, it's a real tragedy. I would like to use this specific notion. This is, we have 12 million IDPs, 5.5 million people left Ukraine, and the rest of them left their homes, and not just homes, they abandoned lots of things. This is a global thing. All your life, your schooling, your university, everything is either damaged or captured by the enemy. And we are proposing different techniques. Some universities were moved, they relocated. Some of them united with the existing universities in the territories which are not occupied. For example, Kherson University moved those people who could do that, could afford that, because the Russian troops wouldn't let anyone leave. They put different impediments in their ways, but all the faculty sometimes would leave, and we can do for students what Glasgow is doing for you. This is free tuition for all the students. It's free of charge and no limits in terms of accepting everyone. The Ministry of Education will accept everyone who wants to learn without any special conditions or any tests or examination for that matter. If you are a young adult, and you are young adults, and you come to the territory which is not under occupation, you have many problems. You have to find accommodation, you have to find some income. So we are looking for temporary accommodation, for some subsistence support, for and the educational opportunities for those people. And we developed the online programs for the people who could not leave or cannot leave the occupied territories at this point. We have great challenges there. I'll be frank with you, because the Russian occupying force, the invaders, they cut off the internet, TV, the banking system in the occupied territories, so that people are living in the occupation and information vacuum. But I would like to tell you the most important thing is that what we want to do for our students and our scholars this autumn in many territories currently occupied. We would like to restore our governance, and we want the children go to school and the students go to the universities under the Ukrainian governmental control. And this is a great task for us, task number one, mission number one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your message of renaissance. I now turn to the University of Manchester moderator, Dr. Anna Glue, a Mobilized Project postdoc, PhD students, and a Ukrainian University of Manchester alumni. You have the floor to take the question, to give your question, please.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you very much for having us, for meeting with us. The city of Manchester has a very strong and active Ukrainian society, which has a very long history. And the University of Manchester conducts important research, including on topics concerning Ukraine. And today I want to thank the Ukrainian Student Society for gathering us all together in this room. In fact, the demand was so high that we had to fill in 2 rooms just to meet with you. And I will pass microphone to one of the members of the Ukrainian Student Society who will ask our question.
Доброго дня, пане президенте. Дуже дякуємо за можливість зібратися і розмовляти на цю тему, на різні теми. Дуже вдячні всім, хто приймав участь в організації. And I will switch to English. We want to also say hello to our second room. Hello, guys, and thank you for coming. And now I'm coming to our first question. Have any decisions been already made so far? What will be prioritized during the reconstruction of Ukraine? Thank you.
Your Excellency, please.
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, we have to restore our territorial integrity. Let me be open there, because we want to rebuild our country, not on some parts of our territory, but all the territory that belongs to us. Secondly, we have to help to rebuild all the infrastructure. First of all, the residential housing, there will be lots of architectural designs and will provide houses for common people. And now already deoccupying our territories step by step, we start rebuilding the educational institutions so that on the 1st of September, people can go back to school, back to kindergarten, school or university for the students. So the second thing is education institutions. And the third, objective is infrastructure. Without it, so we cannot leave. This is roads, this is critical infrastructure, bridges, and the crossings, the tunnels, and the rivers. This is a strategic decision that will be also implemented, because we have such a neighbor. We can finish this war today, and tomorrow they can try to do something evil against our state again. This is important. And then technologies, like I mentioned earlier, we are making a safe, a secure state. The streets should be secure, should be safe, with gas supplies, heating, lighting in the streets, along the roads, on the borders of our state. This is not just about architecture. This is also about technology, science, high tech, and we'll have lots of such processes unfolding. I cannot say what will come first. Let me just repeat that we have little time, so we'll do things in parallel. We'll have to.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your illustrative answer. I now give the floor to the University of Oxford. Moderator, Professor Lionel Tarasenko, President of Rubin College, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning lead, and organizer of the Oxford University Graduate Scholarship Scheme for Ukraine refugees.
We are here in Oxford in the debating chamber of the Oxford Union. Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, was president of the Oxford Union when he was a student in Oxford in the 1980s. I'm a British citizen, but my grandfather was born in Kharkiv and lived in Poltava. I'm Professor of Electrical Engineering and also Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university. This is to tell you that we have had students from Ukraine, both undergraduates and postgraduates in Oxford since the early 2000s. But this year, we have set up a special scholarship scheme for refugees from Ukraine for a one-year master's course in the university starting in September. These masters are fully funded by the university and cover every subject available in Oxford. For example, MBA, Advanced Computer Science, Energy Systems, Diplomatic Studies, Genomic Medicine, and many other subjects. 20 Ukrainian graduate scholars will each live in one of Oxford's historical colleges, and they will have free meals as well as a stipend, so they have no financial worries during their course in Oxford. We are deliberately offering one-year master's courses because we hope that these scholars, after completing their course, will go back to Ukraine and help in the reconstruction of your country. I would now like to welcome the president of the Oxford University Ukrainian Society, Ruslan Pavlishin, to ask you a question.
Доброго вечора, пане президенте.
Good evening.
I would like to ask you a question from our society. Yesterday, 2 British citizens have been sentenced to death in a show trial in the occupied Donbas territories. As a flagrant breach of international law, it is a direct provocation to the United Kingdom. Consequently, do you expect the United Kingdom to become more involved in the war? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Your Excellency. Please take the floor.
What is happening basically for the international law violation of any national law and international law on the part of the Russian Federation. This is a great tragedy in its own right. And the 2 British citizens thus persecuted. This is a tragic habit for those people. With those people, they do everything in that way. And we cannot have any kind of excuses for such steps and for such actions. But let me tell you this. I think that after that, I cannot say whether UK should be more strongly involved. I think the answer is in the negative. I think Boris Johnson, as one of your alumni, was one of the first friends to come to our rescue in this war. This is the case when we can say that Europe and all the world and the skeptical countries and the pacifist country, well, relatively, as far as the Russian Federation is concerned, looking for some kind of a compromise to preserve the business relations as much as possible. For those countries, this is a great signal. This is a very dangerous signal for anyone. This is not just about your citizens. It is the degrading treatment for humans of any origin. And after such cases, the EU countries should at last unite and decisively condemn in actions, not in words, such developments in the occupied territories.
Thank you very much for your answer, Mr. President. True to the word that arbitrary killing constitutes inhuman and degrading treatment. And also in the circumstances is clearly a violation of international human rights and international humanitarian law. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to University College London moderator, the president of University College London and provost, Dr. Michael Spence, please.
Mr. President, like free people everywhere, we at the University College of London stand appalled by the suffering of your people, but in awe of their resilience, of their courage and their love of freedom. And like universities across this country, we've been pleased to be able to offer support to our Ukrainian students and also to establish a £500,000 fund for the support of Ukrainian academics in refuge. But we've never been more proud of the fact that we teach Ukrainian language and culture and history so that those rich stories to which you alluded at the beginning of your remarks can be better understood. And it's my privilege to hand over to the president of our Ukrainian Society, Anton Korchagin.
Thank you, Dr. Spence. Доброго вечора, пане президент. Хоч ми зараз в Англії, але ми теж з України, всім серцем і думками. I will now switch to English. Our question was relevant before the 24th of February. It was relevant before 2014, yet with the beginning of the full scale, it became even more relevant. Many young Ukrainians are currently studying or working abroad, receiving high academic qualifications and experience. And exactly this generation of Ukrainians should and wants to move their country forward. It worries about the future of their homeland and wants to contribute to the rebuilding and development of a new Ukraine. In addressing those young Ukrainians who are currently abroad, what main message would you like to convey to them? And what are your personal plans and programs in motivating them to come back home to avoid brain drain? Дякую. Слава Україні.
Так, дуже круте запитання.
That's a great question and a difficult one to answer. Indeed, so first of all, I'd like to express words of gratitude to Dr. Mike Spence for the support that he mentioned, and I can see that, I can feel this support, and I deeply trust those people who support your language, your culture in the other countries by understanding that the more the person knows, then the more profound this person is. So we are grateful for this academic fund that you've established. Thank you, and thank your team. Now, going back to this question, as I've said, that's a difficult one. And we could have a long debate over that topic, what needs to be done, what shouldn't be done, what was right, what was wrong. We could say that all those 30 years, the politicians and the government were not thinking about the people, and all the people left. So we can talk on and on about this and to spare the time. But I will try to answer briefly your question. There's a lot of painful aspects in our history, and because of which we've lost the most precious we have, the smart people, the brains, so to say. Now it's the moment of truth. Now it's the war in our country. And when we will be victorious, we will build a new country. And you have to understand our traditions, our rich history. I think you're something like 20-year-old, maybe 19 years old. You're a young person. You're a student. I can't build a comfortable state for you without you. I can build a state for all of us, for our generation, and for elderly people. We can try many things. We can build a modern Ukraine, but building a future without a young generation is something that is impossible to make. We can be having freedom and liberal approaches, but we have our own approach to thinking. We can look based on our experience, but looking into the future as transparently as you, it's something that we can't do. Every generation is much better than the previous one. Every generation is more modern than the previous one. So I cannot offer you something, but I can help you to implement your dreams, to have them come to reality, to have your vision for the future come to action. That's what I can do.
Well, Mr. President, you started off by saying it's a difficult issue, but I think you gave a star quality answer. We now give the opportunity to Channel 4, a TV coverage that is based here in the UK. They are on Zoom following this particular event, and they too would like to put a question to His Excellency. Channel 4, please.
Yes, hello, my name is Matt Fry from Channel 4 News. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, President Zelensky. I spent quite a lot of time this year, and indeed before the war, in Ukraine as a journalist, and I, like many people, have been deeply impressed by the resilience of the Ukrainian people under these horrific circumstances. But I wonder, you yourself in recent days have been saying that you're losing about 100 men each day in the fighting in the eastern Donbas region. At what stage do the circumstances compel you, Mr. President, to try and settle for some kind of peace, if that's the right word, with the Russians, to give up on some of that territory that you're trying to regain or hold at the moment? And a follow-up, if I may, in the last few months, we've seen Finland and Sweden apply for NATO membership and be fast-tracked to that membership. This is something that has only come about because of the war in Ukraine, and it is something that has eluded you so far. I wonder how you feel about that.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm very happy for the Finland and Sweden. I believe that's a very wise choice, although unfortunately that choice was made because of the war has started in Ukraine. But I believe that this aggression has resulted in those countries taking their decisions. It was the decisions taken by the leaders and their society. They've decided to have this approach, and it will help them to defend their people in case of Russian aggression or in case of any other's aggression by the entity who's disregarding the rights and international norms. So that's a large victory already that their society has accepted that decision, because a large percentage of people who support NATO has increased. Now, speaking about Ukraine, well, Ukraine wanted to have that before the aggression. Ukraine wanted to have that even before the war started in 2014, and we've publicly announced about this. Now, speaking about my feelings, I can give you only one answer. Feeling for some stabs or misstabs. That's the feelings that should be demonstrated by those who missed with those steps. It's about the right decisions of different institutions that have to be made, and that would be able to save a lot of lives. And already we had 2 stages of the bloody history of our country. I believe if Ukraine would join NATO, there would be a fight for the independence of Ukraine, but there would be not so many losses. there could be maybe a small military conflict or provocations on the part of Russia, but I truly believe that we would be able to save a lot of lives. So it makes me sort of frustrated or angry, but that's their emotions. And I wouldn't call them a positive emotions because Ukraine wanted to have its NATO future, but it wasn't given that. Still, NATO member nations are providing with support and assistance to Ukraine, and I'm not going to go into details on that. Everyone heard about this. Now, speaking about the first part of your question, throughout my presidentship, I clearly understand and understood that every war has to finish at the table of negotiations, and I understand that diplomacy can save lives. I understand this, but unfortunately, the president of Russian Federation doesn't understand this, and that's it. I mean, you need both parties willing to stop the war between their countries. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And look at the rhetorics that you've used. I'm not sure if that's the interpretation, but the interpretation sounded like, what are you ready to concede or to give up? I'd like to say that, well, there's this independence of our country, and there is not anything that we can concede. Thank you.
The appreciation and admiration and support of many. We do know that there are many demands on your time, but at the same time, the intellectual depth that has underlined this dialogue and exchange has inevitably led to further interest. And I would perhaps beg your indulgence if you have some 20, 30 minutes to spare for a further round of questions.
I'm so sorry. I don't have enough time. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't have enough time. I've turned into English because now I don't have the time even to spare that for the interpretation.
Or not.
So can you hear us? Okay. Russian cyber attack, or you don't hear me, right?
I'm sorry. I said that at least at the end. To show you that we know English. Yes, not so good as you know, but you and you see so and you can't hear me. So I think that your administration decided that my English is not so good to be short for you. But next time my level will be higher. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.